It's been quite a while since I found a new mapping technique that I was so excited about I just had to make a video and show you all. But it happened. It's this video, and I think you're gonna like it. Hi everybody, my name is Nate, and you are watching WASD20, a channel about tabletop RPGs and fantasy maps. In this one, I'm going to be showing you a new technique for drawing location markers on your map. A bit more of a bombastic, attention-grabbing technique than some of the small and simple settlement icons I've shown you in the past. Now obviously I'm going to be showing you a very particular style, but there are actually many ways and variations on this style, so stay tuned to the end of the video when I will be showing you some various twists on it, both from one of my previous maps and from some maps from some of my favorite cartographers. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you a cool new technique for drawing locations on your map, but if you actually want to have usable battle mats for some of these locations, I recommend you check out my sponsor for this video, Dungeon Fog. Let's say your players have finally found the basement below Gorin's Brewery in Kavalis, and you're going to need a battle mat and tokens. Jump into Dungeon Fog to create the map just as you envision it, adding rooms, multiple levels, objects, light sources, and much more. If you don't want to start from scratch, make a copy of an existing map from their huge library of user-created maps. Additionally, Dungeon Fog isn't just a map maker. You can enter GM view and invite your players who will have their own view so you can actually run games in Dungeon Fog with ease. I use it for a lot of my games and I definitely recommend it, so go check it out at dungeonfog.com or there's a link down in the video description. Alright, so as we start things off here, you can tell I've got a lot already started on this map. I have inked most of it, just have a little bit of the coastline and a little bit of mountain shading left to do, maybe some terrain here and there. For most of you, I would definitely recommend inking your locations and labels first, or at the very least saving space for them. So I have saved space for them, but I really wanted to start by inking all the other stuff so that once I drew my locations, you could really see the entire map coming together. So you can see I have these large circles and guidelines here, and for these circles I definitely recommend you use a compass or a circle template, and then I just use a ruler to draw in some guidelines for my text or labels. Next, I spent some time sketching in some locations in pencil, just some ideas for what I might want in each of these locations. I didn't record this because my pencil doesn't show up very well on camera, but you can see that the inking process here, I'm just going over the pencil lines I already created. Now, some of you might be really frustrated because you want to actually get a bit of a tutorial on how to draw these things that I have in the circles. And that's really one of the hard parts here, and I'm sorry I'm not giving you just general illustration instruction so much. I'm hoping to just kind of plant some seeds for you, give you some ideas, but I will tell you I often use reference photos or other drawings and just kind of copy things that I see and try to put them together into something new that is my own. But definitely looking up reference photos for this one right here. I think I probably searched for something like castle or keep or something and came up with something that looked fairly similar to what I'm drawing here. And I added a bit of my own flair here and there. If you're wanting to draw a large palace, go search for images of palaces. If you're wanting to draw a twisted forest, go search for images for that. Don't be afraid to use reference photos because even professional artists very often do that. And the other thing I'll say is be patient and practice. This stuff is not going to come easily right away unless you are already a skilled illustrator. And for me, that's something that's taken a lot of time. As I've grown more confident in my map making skills, I've been more inclined to take on new challenges like this style right here, which up until just a couple months ago was very intimidating to me and I didn't think I could do it. It can also help to start a little bit smaller than what I'm doing. I actually made my location markers much bigger than what I normally would, just for the purpose of being able to see them a little bit better on video. Now for the first one here, I decided to freehand the circle, just going over top of my pencil line. The pencil line I did use the template for. So I had a good foundation and freehanding over that went okay, But in the future circles, I decided to use the actual template even for my ink because I thought it was just a little bit too wobbly. Now, with a marker this big, I just felt like this was still a little too empty. It just didn't have enough detail, so I did go back and just add a little bit more detail after the fact. For the subsequent locations, I will be speeding it up a little bit because I think you get the general idea. But for Khosmar here, I decided to go with a bit of an Arab style architecture with these domes and the towers. I did use several reference photos for this as well, and I also decided to experiment with having the tallest towers actually sticking up out of my circular frame a little bit, which can just give kind of a cool effect of this thing almost popping out. For my circular frame, I decided to go with the template this time, and it's always just a little bit tricky making sure my pen has the right angle to get the circle the right width, but overall I think this went a little bit better than freehanding it. For Sunwell Point here, I did not start with any reference. I just kind of started drawing some buildings and towers, and it maybe made a bit of a kind of a bland looking city in the end. But every good world needs some bland-looking cities too, maybe? So if it's feeling a little bit bland, what do? Well, of course you put a sunshine in the sky to fill up a little bit more of the space. Felt a little like a 5th grader who, after finishing a drawing of a landscape or a knight and a dragon, decided, oh, I forgot the sunshine in the sky. When you're doing lots of structures, it can be really helpful to learn a bit about how to draw in consistent perspective. I don't think I nailed it. I'm not drawing vanishing point and horizon line and all that stuff here, but I'm considering it when I'm drawing, and overall I think it turned out okay. In this one, we're actually kind of looking up at these towers a little bit, just like we are in the very first one I drew. So up until this point, we've done all cities, and it's time to switch things up. So it's important to think about other landmarks or just important locations in this world. And in this case, I went with a wizard's tower. It's a classic trope, and I love it. So breaking outside of cities, I think, can be a lot of fun and can just add a little bit more flavor to your map. So other than a wizard's tower, maybe consider some ruins. Consider a great library or cathedral or something like that. Perhaps it's a witch's hut or some kind of ceremonial location a la Stonehenge. Maybe it's a portal or an orc or barbarian encampment. Consider a mine, and the beauty of this sort of circular frame is it can act as sort of a window to underground locations. So you could draw some stalagmites and stalactites and actually make some sort of underground city. So hopefully these ideas spark some inspiration for you, and I would love to hear your inspiring ideas down in the comments below for other sorts of locations that you could put on your maps in this style. Now in the case of my wizard's tower here, I once again have it sticking up out of the frame. That makes a lot of sense with a tower, and I felt it was a little bit too empty with just the tower, and I didn't really want to add any more structures, so what did I do? I drew in some trees, just some kind of classic looking pine trees. And speaking of trees, how about a gigantic tree with a city on and in it? I have no clue how this idea came to me. I was just trying to think of unique things, and it struck me, and for the record, I think it's genius.
Did this dude just call himself a genius? Who does that?
Now, I only had a really rough outline in pencil, so I was figuring out a lot of this as I went. Did you ever have those drawings that you start and you're like, oh man, this is actually looking kind of terrible, and then somehow miraculously it totally turns around and you're happy with it? Well, that definitely happened on this. You can see it looking pretty terrible toward the middle there, and eventually through some shading and adding some branches, I think it actually ended up looking okay. As I'm finishing this tree city up here, I will also encourage you to think about just simply natural locations. It could just be a tree. It doesn't have to be a tree city. It could be a significant rock or a swamp or a desert or something that certainly I represent in many ways on a map, but you could put them in a circular frame like this if it's a significant place in your world. Now, my circles aren't perfect. There are a couple places where I might go back with a little whiteout or something like that, or just touch them up digitally later after scanning. But for the most part, this is looking pretty good, and I'm going to put the finishing touches on the map. I am labeling the other less significant locations, and I'm also kind of patching in some of the areas along the coastline where I didn't end up needing all the space I thought I might need for my labels. Later on, I did add a pretty simple compass rose as well, and the only thing that's left here is really a title. That's something I usually like to have, a name for this world, so if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. So taking a quick look at some variations, this one here is an older map I did just a couple months ago, and one thing you notice a little bit different here is you can see a bit more of the background in these circular frames. Like in Skam River here, you can see the river. And in Corin, you can actually see a bit of the mountains in the background, whereas in my current map, I decided to leave the background pretty clear. Now, this circular frame technique kind of reminds me of like a fairy tale book, and I'm not sure where I first saw it, but I definitely remember being inspired several years ago by this map from Maxime Plas. And he's got these really great circular frames that just give us, again, a window into the world. This second map of Max's actually just kind of leaves the map itself as is and simply seems to put circles around some locations that were already there on the map. They don't seem to be magnified at all, but it does draw more attention to these locations. Also note that Max generally does use a single circle as opposed to my kind of thick-walled double circle. And in this map, he actually has the text placed in sort of random spots around the edge of that circle. Another Maxime Plas original. Who says you have to put locations in those circular frames? In this one, we see what creatures or monsters live in these areas. This last one here from Max is really interesting because he sort of uses these circle frames as a key for the map. We get the numbered location on the actual map, and then we have a corresponding circle around the perimeter that gives us a closer look at what we would see there. This one is unique. This is from Daniel's maps, and what I like about it is we actually do see both the magnified version in the circle as well as the smaller location marker on the map. And with these lines, we definitely get the impression that what we're seeing here is magnified. So everything I've shown you in this video, whether it's my map or these other ones, is really just a start, and I can't wait to see what you all will do with it, what sorts of ideas and variations it will inspire for your maps. I'd love to see them, by the way. If you want to go over to the WASD20 Discord server, there is a maps channel there, and people are posting all their work and having great discussions over there, so go check it out. Link in the video description. All right, before we go here, I do want to give a quick word of thanks to my patrons. The WASD20 patrons make it happen for me here on the channel, and they get some pretty cool benefits, things like weekly live map drawing streams with me. So if you want to check it all out, go over to patreon.com/WASD20. Thanks, patrons. All right, that's all for this one, everybody. Take care, happy mapping. You'll see me again very soon.